Hey, how we going, guys? Mickey, if not Cartel, back to do an instructional video this time around. So we're going to do an instructional video on how I dehydrate my kveik yeast. So we have the Skare here. We also have another container that holds what I think is probably majority of trube, the last of sort of what we pulled out. A little bit darker in colour, as you can see. If I compare the two together on screen, one's sort of light, the other one's quite dark. We'll go with the lighter colour one. It is starting to reactivate. It's been in the fridge. We've gotten rid of the distilled water that it's been sitting on. So yeah, as it starts to warm up, it's obviously kicking back in. Surprisingly, it was kicking along when it was in the fridge. So the bag was inverted down into the bottle. After a couple of days, it had created some CO2. That bag sort of got quite hard, and it stayed pretty much solid while it was in the fridge. So proving that the yeast, bearing in mind it is a top crop, just like the Fram Garden. We've done the two varieties of harvest ales, using one with the Fram Garden, one with the Skare, and they were cold crashed afterwards. And so when this went into the fridge, it was already cold, so it had started to gas off and activate and carry on while it was in the fridge, surprisingly. Dessert spoon, it has been sanitised. Got the dehydrator here, the Coles brand Thompson dehydrator, the newer one that the wife had purchased me. Just one tray in there is all you need. Parchment paper, which baking paper, parchment paper, has a rough side, has a smooth side. For some reason I thought it was always the same, but it's not. You can actually see there's a rough and a smooth. I'm pretty sure I've got the smooth side ready to go. That is just one piece. We folded that in half, and what we're going to do is we're going to fold it again and again, just like that. This is, you know, it's big enough to fit into the dehydrator and overlap the sides. We're then going to cut, so inside this tray, for those who've got these round dehydrators, we've got the centre section with the hole there. What we want to do is, because the rest of it's going to be covered, so the gauze section will be covered with the parchment paper, obviously, and we're going to, this folded corner here, which should be the centre of the parchment paper, we're going to try and cut a hole just like this, quarter circle. That landed right where the circle is in the dehydrator. Couldn't do that if you tried. So once we unfold it all, we have that hole in the centre there. So that's perfect. I've gotten that exactly right, as you can see there. Got the hole cut out. Now I've got the dehydrator turned off at the moment because it does make a fair bit of noise. And whilst I'm trying to talk through the instructional, we don't want that noise there. It does overlap, as you can see. It overlaps the edges of there, that's fine. Don't worry about that too much. And when the lid goes on, this is what I do first. I place the lid on and I push it down. That creates the shaping that we need and pretty much a seal. That'll pop through there in areas like that where the little tabs are on the lid. So when we lift it off, like that, we've pretty much formed the shape that we need of the dehydrator. Pretty much perfect how we want it. Sit that back on there. Okay, so once again, we've got a sterilised spoon. I'll just sterilise it. Spray bottle of Starzan. Sterilise that. Now, like I said, it's a top cropping yeast, as is the Fram Garden, and normally what you do is at high krausen or in high fermentation, around about, because kveik yeast is so fast fermenting, loves the warmer temperatures. Anywhere above 30 is pushing towards the 40s. It probably wouldn't go any more than mid 30s, 35, 36 is fine, I've found. Some would go sub 30s, so around about 28, 29 degrees. That's an even point. Depends what sort of flavors you want to get from the yeast itself. So if you stress this Skare enough, you get big mango and sort of tropical, but majority of, from what I read, is mango flavors. That is pretty much what I got from it. And so stressing it at a higher point, different degrees, gives you different sort of flavors and aromas. So we've got our spoon. We're just going to pour this straight from the bottle, so pop, which you can hear there's a fair bit of gas in there, and it does, it's the aroma coming off it already. Just give that another bit of a spray. Yeah, it smells unreal. So quite fruity, lots of esters. Now I'm just going to tilt the camera forward. Excuse my hand for a second. Hopefully it stays where I want it to stay and we can see what's going on here. If not, I'll tilt it once I've gone. So I'm just going to pour it onto the parchment paper here. Yeah, it is very thick. And we probably won't get all this out. There's some bubbles in there which shows that it's active. So we'll just go around the parchment paper. Oh, there's heaps in there. That's beautiful. Just keep going around, and obviously the spoon is to help spread it out. Once we, this is probably the largest amount that I've done, so the video will be in sections because we're obviously going to be drying it over probably 5 to 6 hours. Oh, it smells unreal. Basically, there's probably oh yeah, it smells unreal. That's all I can say. Give that another bit of a spray. I'm going to put that back over it. There's probably enough in there, in that bottle there, to make a starter itself. So you can throw it out, you can waste it, you can do whatever you want with that. I expect to get around about 15 to 20 grams of, bloody thing, come on, come out. No, that'll do. 15 to 20 grams of harvested yeast today, which should be nice. But we can throw that back in the fridge just like that. Feed it up. Create plenty there to create a starter. So alright, so let's spray that again. Now we'll sort of tilt this forward. You can see what I'm doing here then. I'm just going to use the back of the spoon. It's quite fluffy actually, puffing up as I move it around. Hopefully the sound quality is decent enough for this video. You want it sort of thin but not too thin, because some of it actually does stick to the paper and it doesn't come off, so, and then you end up with bits of parchment paper through the yeast, which you don't want. So you got to overdo it to get what you want out of it. You're not going to get it all, but in saying that, this is quite thick. Around about, what am I going to run at, 40 degrees? I think that's a safe bet from research. Anywhere between 35 to 40 degrees. I think some people do dry at 45 because they dry in an oven. Basically get rid of that. That's, you know, you could almost put that into a small starter there and build it up if you wanted to. We're not going to do that. sit it on top of that one now. I can wipe it off in a minute. Alright, so that's that. We're going to crank her up. Put the lid on first. Try and find where our holes were that we just punched into it so we don't disturb it too much. Might have to re-punch the holes now. No, that's fine, that's where it is. We're going to crank her up. I always put it at 15 hours that way. If I do got to duck out and do something for a little bit, it's still going to keep going. I'm going to change that. We've got that at 70, so we need to bring it down to about 40. This one only goes as low as 35, but we run it at 40. Click her in. All right, there we go. You can hear that. That's pumping away. So we'll come back as it starts to dry. We'll continue the instructional and a bit of visual on how things are going in the actual video over the process. And we'll keep going until eventually we're harvesting, we're putting it into clip-lock bags. Cheers. Right guys, we're about two and a half hours in from starting the dehydration of the Skare kveik yeast. So I'll just flip the camera and you can have a look at what's going on at the moment. It's a great visual representation of how it starts to separate from the parchment paper and where you get the flakes happening. So as you can see, I'll just lift the lid off quickly. You can see it's starting to crack up, starting to flake. Some thicker bits there, not quite drying quick enough. It is starting to crack there, but yeah. And as you're sort of going along, it's sort of an idea just to take the lid off and stretch the paper out, sort of as you're going, and that'll help it lift away from the parchment paper, and in turn you'll get minimal amounts sticking to the paper itself. So those larger flakes will actually start to crack again themselves, and then you'll get smaller flakes. You do get quite larger ones that will sort of break up as you start to bag them. So so far so good, going really well. We'll come back and look at how it's progressing through the whole ring that's going on there, and eventually we'll be up to bagging. So around about 2.5 hours in so far. Alright, so it's going absolutely awesome. Starting to dry really well. The Skare kveik yeast going great. We've been going for approximately 4.5 hours, thereabouts. I think we jacked it up to 15. We're at 10 hours and 38 minutes on the countdown, so yeah, around about that 4.5 hour mark. It does take a little bit of time, particularly at 40 degrees. Could have went at 35 and gone a bit slower. May have allowed it to not darken as much as what it has, but that's how it is. Second run. This is the second run of the Skare. So what I purchased through Blake Hazel, go and check that he posts often kveik yeast for sale, particularly the Fran Garden and the Skare on Yeast Buy Swap and Sell Australia, I think it's called, on Facebook. So I'm not sure how many times he's put it through a process, but I'm up to my second now. And the reason for this video, obviously didn't do the video for the first one, but I'm doing it for this one. So it's going really well. I've given the paper a bit of a move around. I've sort of pushed bits of flakes and stuff around just to give you a look at basically how it looks as it's sort of going. So most of it's really cracked away. We've got a fair bit that's actually stuck to the paper. Like I said, we expected probably 15 grams from what we've put onto the parchment in the dehydrated today, but it could be less. Might have been a little bit too much. Well, it was quite thick. I was thinking the more moisture you got, the more time it's got to soak into the paper, and that obviously creates a bit of an issue. But as thick as what it was, I felt that it probably should have come away pretty good. But the parchment paper is there. It draws the moisture out as well as the dehydrator. So, but what's there, I'm pretty happy with. I can keep brewing away with what I've got. Can share it around, which is what the plan is. So I've still got a couple of bags left there in the fridge. I've just started. Had a bit of a run off with the. You probably see the steam behind me. We are having a brew day. Rise to the top, kveik, yeast is going into this rise to the top. So the rise to the top is 5 kilos of pale malt, 1 kilo of rye malt, and 1 kilo of flaked wheat. So that is actually chugging away really well. It's got its own little yeast raft going on at the top there. I had it's a little coffee jar. I had the lid pushed down on it, and about 5 minutes ago, or 5-10 minutes ago, it actually popped the lid off. So I know that it's building up CO2. I can see it. It's churning away. It's got lots of activity going on in there. That yeast is going into that beer, which is also going to be here on YouTube. So a bit of a busy day going on at the moment. Pretty clear head today, so things are moving along quite well. I'm just going to flick the camera and give you a look at what's going on here in the dehydrator. Alrighty, so you can see there, I can lift the lid off again. There's no real drama with that, but we're at that point now where we're pretty much starting to draw the last of the moisture out of that Skare yeast. Some big bits there. They will break down once they start to, they look big, but we're going to leave some behind. So just to show you what's going to happen when we start to try and move it. That's obviously peeling away. Get some of these other. Yeah, I've got bare hands, but I've just sanitized them. You can see, particularly just here, you see this here, it is starting to dry out a lot. It'll come away, but we want to avoid trying to pull any parchment paper, that top layer of parchment paper, away with what's there. So this bit here is quite good. It's probably a good bit to actually try and peel back and give you an idea of what I mean by when it sticks. And that's what it's doing. So it's the very edge that we're going to pull away, and we're probably going to be able to get away with a save. But as it dries more, I'll keep moving that paper. I'll keep sort of crushing it and trying to get it to pull away from that layer of paper. But what we got here, from what I can gather, or basically what I'm doing, is moving it away from the moist bits. The moist bits are what's sticking to the paper itself. So I think the longer you sort of do it, the more it's going to pull away. But scrunching that paper, that bits there, they're quite thick there, so they're not going to come away too easy. Just keep breaking it away, so it allows it to dry a bit more as it goes on. I'm not sure whether this is the right way to be doing things, but it's obviously working, because that's what I've got over here is churning away nicely. So that's actually a Fran Garden that I've got rehydrated there, just rehydrated and a bit of a runoff from that beer that's going on behind us there. So these are really dry bits here where they've ended up going really thin. So these real light bits you see, you get nothing from that. That's soaked into the paper. I'm confident that I'll pull anywhere between 10 to 15 grams. I'm happy to get 15 grams from it. I can break it up into 3 lots and 5 grams. There's about 5 grams in that jar there, but it's only the first sort of runnings that I got for half hour into the mash. So yeah, anyway, that's sort of where we're at. We've got 25 minutes to go on this boil here, and we're about to 25 minutes time we're going to put some hops into that. Now, there was no bittering additions gone into that, but go and check it out on the other video. Go and check it out on the brew day video, what's happening with that brew behind me. Cheers. Right guys, I'm gonna start moving on. So we have been going for 5 hours trying to get this dry. I'm not having much luck with this batch, I don't think. That's not too bad, I guess. I've got to sort of play around with the bits and pieces of it, but what I can get to break away. I'm getting a little bit of parchment paper on the finish, but that's alright, because it's for me anyway, so plenty there to sort of share around if people are interested. I'm going to transfer what I can for the parchment paper. Pretty much like that, and then I'm just going to get the rest, crunch the paper up over the top of the. This is how I done it last time. I think I've got to invest in some better parchment paper. I mean, for what it is, it'll keep evolving. You'll keep making what you can from it. Keep brewing with it. Keep harvesting. Keep drying it out. But yeah, no, it's not. Not the best. Anyway, what we got from it? Not too bad. That's landed where I wanted to land if it was going to fall out in the tray of the fermenter. Right guys, I'm just sort of picking away at what's come away of the paper. Not as much as what I was hoping for, to be honest. As you know, this is what I mean by it sticking to the paper. There is parchment paper on there. It's not a huge issue, I don't think. You probably could just throw it in and it'll sink its way down. But anyway, like from what I've got, I'm pretty happy with that. It's enough to keep me going. So there's probably around about 10 grams there. I said 10 between 15 grams would be plenty. I'll just keep picking away, and we might end up with more than what we anticipate from what it is. Got sidetracked with the brew, so I didn't actually get a chance to sort of flex the paper and get it off that top parchment. I might have had it the wrong way around. I don't know. Anyway, I'm happy with what I got from it. It is still what it is, a demonstrational video. Hopefully people get the gist of what's going on. that's about it. Might do another run with that darker stuff that I had there earlier. See whether that makes a difference, but I'm happy with that. Not bad at all, to be honest. Throw it into a bag and see what we got there. Skare's here somewhere. Turn that off now. Put that in there. Those bags weigh about 0.5 of a gram. So here we've got 10.5, 10 grams. 10 grams ready to go. Into the fridge, ready for the next brew. Cheers.